Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depends on where you're located. And welcome to the Asia Solar Energy for Climate Change Conference, ASAC, a platform dedicated to harnessing the power of renewable energy in our fight against climate change. This conference is organized by Carbon Care InnoLab, CCIL. My name is Kevin Lee, and I am honored to be your moderator for this insightful panel discussion. The session today will focus on unlocking solar potential for resilient energy systems in rapidly urbanizing Asian cities. Across Asia, cities are expanding fast. Populations are rising, infrastructure is multiplying, and electricity demand is surging. Urban leaders face a dual challenge: securing reliable, affordable energy while reducing environmental impacts of conventional systems. Solar energy, which is scalable, increasingly cost-effective, and clean, offers real promise. Yet, we know the hurdles are substantial, such as fragmented planning, inadequate grid and rooftop infrastructure, and more importantly, policy and finance frameworks that don't yet match the pace of urban change. So for today, our objective is to explore practical strategies that help cities harness solar to build energy resilience, protect livelihoods and ecosystems, and deliver equitable, sustainable development. So we begin with a few simple ground rules to keep our exchange open, respectful, be concise, and stay on point, so we can hear from your voices, engage ideas, and even disagree respectfully. Let speakers finish their thoughts. We'll ensure time for responses. So let's keep your presentations within 10 minutes. I will give you a reminder in due course. Keep your questions and comments concise, inclusive, and accessible. For the Q&A, please state your name and your organization and keep your questions brief. So we are fortunate to have a diverse panel bringing cities practice, policy research, finance advocacy, and community-led implementation. So the first speaker will be Engineer Carl Maynard D. Baculo. He is the Project Development Officer and focal person for Energy Efficiency and Conservation Program, City Government of Muntinlupa, Philippines, who will bring to us his cities program. And the second speaker will be Dr. Pranusha Kulkarni, Assistant Professor of General Management and Public Policy at the Gore Institute of Management, whose research examines the just dimensions of India's renewable transition at subnational level. And the third speaker will be Mr. Chuck Balagon, Asia Regional Finance Campaigner at 350.org Asia, working to shift public finance away from fossil fuels to climate solutions. And last but not least, my colleague, Mr. Ken Tai. He's the project manager of Carbon Care InnoLab. He's an experienced solar system engineer with daily project delivery across community sites. Here's how we'll proceed. I will invite each speaker to share up to 10 minutes of opening insights. After all your inputs, I will moderate a focused discussion among the panelists, and then we'll open the floor for your questions. With that, let's get started. Engineer Carl Baculo will share his insights from implementing the energy efficiency and conservation program to strengthen city-level climate and energy resilience. Carl, you now have 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Can you hear me loud and clear? Hello? Is my audio loud and clear? Okay. You can also see my screen now, right? Okay. Once again, good morning and good afternoon to all our esteemed guests and participants today. First of all, I am honored and thrilled to speak before you. And on behalf of the city government of Muntinlupa, I am very thankful to Carbon Care Inulab for this opportunity where we can share our city's experiences and efforts in building climate resiliency. Before we dive in my presentation, allow me to give a brief background first of our city. Muntinlupa City is one of the 17 local government units in Metro Manila in the Philippines. It is located in the southernmost part of Metro Manila and has total land area of 3,975 hectares with a population of around 552,000 based on the latest census. Now, moving on, we know that the climate change is one of the major challenges we face today. Back in 2015, Paris Agreement, different countries have made their commitments to reduce their greenhouse gas emission as part of climate mitigation. The Philippines have a bold target to reduce 75% of GHG emission by 2030. By then, a lot of efforts have been made by our country and different policies were put in place to support this target. One of which is the institutionalization of energy efficiency and conservation among LGUs in the country. The city of Muntinlupa basically implemented the energy efficiency and conservation program, which aims to reduce energy consumption, particularly electricity and fuel, through the use of energy efficient technologies and energy conservation measures. This program is anchored in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG number 7 and SDG number 13. So we started to institutionalize EEC by creating the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Office and formulating major plans and policy such as the Local Energy Efficiency and Conservation Plan and the Local Energy Code. Major aspect of the EEC program aims to utilize energy efficient technologies such as LED lights and inverter air conditioning units in all government facilities and buildings. Also, through our local energy code, it is the policy of Muntinlupa to promote and encourage the development and utilization of renewable energy, such as the installation of solar PV system in city-owned buildings. Aside from the use of technology, it is also important to conduct awareness campaigns to the public because first, community engagement is necessary to the overall success of the program. And second, energy conservation measures are usually behavior in nature. That's why we have to communicate to our constituents how can their little action can bring big impacts in combating climate change. With that, we conducted various public awareness campaigns to different sectors such as the women, youth, government employees, drivers, among others. Since this session focuses on solar energy, let me share something. In the Philippines, the average daily installation is around 5 kilowatt hour per meter squared per day. And using this tool, the PV watts calculator developed by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, we can actually see the average or the available energy in your location, which we can use um, which we can use in designing the solar PV system in our city government buildings or even your home. I think this tool can be very helpful to LGUs or any individual who wish to know how much energy they can generate based on their location. I would also like to put emphasis to one of our existing solar PV system in Colegio de Muntinlupa, our local engineering and architecture school. It has 812 pieces of PV modules, which generates 9,550 kilowatt hour of energy per month, and it supplies 62% of the campus's energy requirement. By this solar PV system, we have saved around 3,500 US dollars per month. Through our efforts, we are proud to share that we have this accomplishment. We have reduced 6.89% of electricity back in 2022. We have saved 88.6 megawatt hour of energy. And we also avoided around 62 tons of carbon dioxide emissions from the implementation of the EEC program. We are also glad to share that through our efforts, we have received various recognitions locally and abroad. We have received the Urban Climate Action Award from in Suwon, South Korea last October 25, 2023. And we also received the Energy Efficiency Excellence Award from the Department of Energy back in December 19, 2023. While the national and local government ratified laws, city ordinances, and various policies, there are still challenges in implementing energy efficiency and conservation program. First is the stakeholders engagement. I mean, much needed collaboration has to materialize among the government, the private sector, and civil society to abide by the measure that results in energy efficiency and conservation and increase the share of renewable and clean energy in the city and in the country. Next is the financial capability. We know that investment in renewable energy requires great deal of resources, and local government units usually have limited financial resources. Lastly, the social and behavioral change. As I mentioned earlier, most electricity and fuel conservation measures are behavioral in nature. And conserving energy and utilizing scarce resources needs a behavior shift among end users and the public. The LGU has to pursue active implementation and monitoring to instill energy efficiency and conservation as a way of life of its constituents. With that, I think that ends my presentation. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl, for your insights. Our next speaker is Dr. Pranusha Kulkarni. Dr. Kulkarni will share her research from the Pavagada Solar Park, examining how national and subnational governance can be strengthened to ensure just and equitable energy transitions. So, Pranusha, you will have 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin. Let me share my screen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. I thank Carbon Care InnoLab to give me this opportunity to share my field study, which I did in my doctoral research. So in my PhD, I've studied the Indian renewable energy transition policies, which included the study at this ultra mega solar park. Is my screen visible? Not yet, right? Yeah, it's taking some time. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to make it full screen, but it's taking time. Okay, let me just reshare. Okay, so in my presentation, I'll first start by briefly giving the national and subnational policy context in India and the province called Karnataka, where this ultra mega solar park is there. And I'll then briefly discuss what is energy justice as a concept and how is it linked to resilience, solar resilience. And then I'll spend a lot of time discussing insights and policy recommendations. As you can see in this slide, India's installed renewable energy capacity has been consistently increasing since 2015. Even though we are still predominantly dependent on coal, the share of solar, wind, and hydropower has been increasing. Even among this, if you look at the graph on the right hand side, the share of solar is the highest among all the renewable energy sources. So my fieldwork was at this Pavgada Solar Park in the southern part of India, in the state of Karnataka. So Karnataka has its own renewable energy policy where in the latest state budget, 2.6 billion US dollars has been earmarked exclusively for the renewable energy sector, most of which is for solar energy, both ultra mega solar parks and rooftop solar. So I am going to be focusing only on the justice effects of the mega solar parks. This is the satellite view of the solar park. As you can see, it's huge. It's spread out across 52.6 square kilometers. It produces 2050 megawatts of solar energy and it's connected to the national grid. So the energy which is produced here is supplied to mega cities of India, including Bangalore, which is called as the IT capital of India. This site was chosen for the solar park because it has been historically a semi-arid region. It receives scanty rainfall. Some crops are produced here, like peanuts, etc. But the region has been historically drought prone. The farmers are poor, so they were struggling to make their ends meet. That's why the government chose this site. So the question I went to the field with is this: what are the justice impacts of subnational solar energy transition policy implementation in this state, and what can we learn from this? So by energy justice, I mean this. It has been extensively theorized in the field of sustainability studies. It basically boils down fundamentally to these three prongs: procedural justice, distributive justice, and restorative justice. Mainly including the people in the decision making, whoever will be impacted by the policies, and then equitably distributing the energy goods and bads, and creating institutional structures that address whatever bads might happen because of the solar parks. Right. So in my fieldwork, I found that in Karnataka, most of this is missing in the way policy has been legislated. For example, when I talk about how procedural injustice was caused because of the solar park, the way consent of the farmers was taken to give away their farmlands for the solar park was non-inclusive. It was a huge gathering of 2,000 farmers, and only one representative spoke on behalf of all of them. And they didn't even know what they are getting into. So the literature talks about this concept called FPIC, free prior informed consent. This was not taken by the individual farmers. Secondly, there is this farmers association, local farmers association, but most of the farmers are not a part of it because it's populated with the upper caste male landed farmers. So, for example, agricultural laborers who have lost their livelihood but who don't own their land are not a part of this association. So basically, they don't have a voice to file their grievances. So the text here in blue that you see is what the secretary of this association said. He basically sees it as creating awareness among the local farmers because they are illiterate, awareness to give away their lands. So jobs were promised to them, but they never got the jobs. So these two pictures I took during my fieldwork. This is called as the Dalit colony. So Dalits are the lowermost caste group in India. So if you know, India has this caste system, which is discriminatory. It is illegal, but it still exists. So you can see that it's visible that there are not even roads or drainage system in this locality. Even though these were agricultural laborers, now they travel to neighboring districts as daily wage workers. So people here told me that only the wealthy farmers have gotten benefited from the solar park, but landless agricultural laborers haven't gotten jobs. And even among them, the solar power developers are only hiring men because they don't want women. They are giving random reasons like women wear saris, it's not feasible for them to work in the solar park. So there is distributive injustice in the solar park. Another kind of distributive injustice is the CSR funds which were gotten by the solar park developers. They are being diverted outside this county. It was supposed to be used for the benefit of these locals because they have given up their lands. But that's not been done, because of which, as you can see, the basic public infrastructure in these villages is lacking. The third prong of distributive and restorative injustices which I saw was how the lack of jobs among even young men of this area is contributing to joblessness. So this is a picture of a board game they were playing, because literally the government is giving them compensation because they have leased out their lands, but they don't have jobs, right? This is not good for the economy in the long run. So they were struggling for jobs, even trying to ask me if I could help them, get any jobs. Lastly, this whole agreement of leasing out the lands, it bans the use of agrivoltaics. So you can see here, sorry, the solar panels are at least around 6 feet high above the ground. There is a lot of space on the ground which is not being used for farming or trying to grow any kind of crops in these erstwhile agricultural lands. So the government could explore the potential of agrivoltaics. So based on these observations, these are my targeted policy recommendations for each of these justice prongs on how solar energy can also lead to socio-political and economic resilience in the local economies, especially when we are talking about marginalized people who would have given up their lands. So to ensure procedural justice, decision-making authority has to be delegated to the lowest unit. If it's the village, in India, we have what are known as Gram Sabhas, the village councils, basically. So they have to be given the decision-making authority of how the land can be used and what kind of lease agreements can be entered into. Prior informed consent has to be taken from everyone who is giving away their lands. And the association has to be caste and gender inclusive, and proper grievance redressal mechanisms have to be set up. In terms of distributive and restorative justices, the government working alongside the private solar developers could create or fund alternate employment avenues. Like most women spoke about a willingness to work in garment factories because they are skilled in tailoring. Similarly, the government could incentivize pro-social behaviors among the private corporates. Right now, there are no incentives for them to do anything good for the locals. Thirdly, punitive action could be taken against companies who are engaging in gender or caste discriminatory employment practices, like a blanket ban on not hiring women without giving enough reasons. And then accountability mechanisms could be set up structurally to ensure that the local governance council is not diverting the CSR funds. In terms of restorative justice, agrivoltaics can be explored. The local economy could explore economic diversification. And then generally, the way we are looking at renewable energy transition, we are only focusing on meeting targets, the numbers. So instead of that, if we also integrate the socio-political consequences of how we are reaching these targets, I think a just and inclusive solar transition can be paved out. Thank you so much. This was my time. I'm happy to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. You could scan this. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Pranusha, for your sharing. Our next speaker, it will be Mr. Chak Bagagong. Chuck will share his insights from 350.org Asia on financing a just and resilient transition, outlining pathways for cities to unlock their solar potential. So Chuck, you will have 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for the organizers for inviting me and having my organization as part of this research pool. And thank you also for the valuable insights shared by the speakers that preceded me. All of them are much appreciated. I didn't prepare a presentation because I think most of what I'll be saying are already covered in other sessions as well. And what mostly I'll be sharing are, key items or key insights on how you can actually maximize available mechanisms within existing climate change response frameworks that are legislated for the international community, and how you can use them as a platform for, engaging your government to look into decarbonization as a key area of how sustainable development can be integrated. But before that, I think I'll introduce first my organization. I come from 350.org or 350.org. We are a global grassroots climate movement that's working for climate action that is based on the realities of science, but also informed by the principles of justice. We are a relatively new organization. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary last year. Mainly, the name is also our call to action. So the name 350 is focused on the aspect of reducing the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere from its current level of 400 plus parts per million to 350 parts per million, which is, according to science, is the safe number of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere that can guarantee that life can thrive. Take note of the word thrive, not merely survive in its diversity. So we believe that shifting to a low carbon economy is a matter of great concern because it entails changing the development pathway of our countries, especially in Asia, not merely to contribute towards, meeting emissions reductions targets that are set, for example, under the Paris Agreement, but it's also about ensuring that we can thrive or we can develop economically in the context of climate change. And in doing so, we are aiming towards a future that is powered by, what we are all talking about, the sun, the wind, and the people. And 350 plays a major role in the climate movement by building collective power of individuals and communities in leading campaigns for low carbon solutions that are fit for purpose to their communities through engaging in the development of communities of practice that explore sustainable solutions, integrating work around engaging duty bearers for fair policies, and for encouraging grassroots leadership in decarbonization. I'll be sharing here about our finance campaign. So we believe that finance campaigning is not merely about stopping money from fossil fuels. It is also about shifting the flows of money towards the kind of development that is our vision, which is renewable, just, prosperous, and equitable, and more importantly, safe. And for us, we believe that this requires engaging both public and private financial institutions to shift that flow of money, because that would provide the needed stimulus for transitioning energy systems. And with due consideration also for having the necessary safeguards and mechanisms to ensure that the transition towards renewables has justice and ecological responsibility at its heart. But for the sake of these discussions, I will focus more on how finance can be accessed in existing climate agreements and how it can use to jumpstart the transition as you engage different, institutions, so that you would be able to provide mechanisms if they already expressed interest in transitioning or integrating solar power in the energy mix. How do they do that? First is also recognizing that there is a lot of potential. We just need to channel capital into building decentralized solar systems that communities can own and operate. There's more than sufficient data that's available to say that solar energy paired with storage strengthens grid stability and reduces dependence on volatile fossil fuel imports, which is a common phenomenon in many countries in Asia. That's why Asia ranks as among the countries where there is a high incidence of energy poverty, meaning that there's a lot still of communities and households that do not have stable energy access for heating and cooking, and also for high electricity prices, because many countries in Asia, especially in the archipelagic regions that are islands states, actually import fossil fuels as to power their power plants. And I think that it is important for emphasizing that argument that transitioning is also about, economic development. And for unlocking that finance under, for example, the Paris Agreement, Asia can maximize resources by tapping into existing frameworks, which I will go through in a bit. It's important to look into these frameworks as well as channels that are designed to lower the cost of capital for renewable energy projects, to de-risk investments and provide the concessional finance that makes solar deployment viable, especially for developing countries. In detail, these mechanisms under the Paris Agreements are: first is the Green Climate Fund, which is, I think, most unknown to many because it has been in existence since 2009 after the Copenhagen Summit. Basically, this is the flagship financial mechanism under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreements. In general, it provides grants, concessional loans, equity, and guarantees for mitigation and adaptation projects of countries that are party to the UNFCCC. It prioritizes renewable energy and energy access in developing countries with programs to de-risk investments and mobilize private capital. So if you're looking at entering engagements related to accessing funds, the GCF is a good starting point. And then there's also another mechanism called the Green Environment Facility, which operates as part of the Paris framework to fund and enable countries such as in terms of capacity building, technology transfer, readiness for larger scale finance. It basically supports renewable energy in terms of providing resources for demonstration projects, for exploring policy reform for countries, and for investment in innovation on how renewable energy can be fit for purpose for domestic needs of countries. The third mechanism that I think is available as well is the Adaptation Fund, or the AF. Though traditionally it has been focused on adaptation, meaning that it's focused on how can communities increase their resilience or their adaptive capacities to respond to the impacts of climate change. It can also support energy resilience measures such as decentralized solar power for vulnerable communities, for example, in disaster scenarios, because one of the greatest challenges of many communities that are always facing, for example, devastating typhoons is that they become isolated because when power goes down, they are not able to charge communication infrastructure for them to be able to, one, communicate with the outside world, to know developments that are being communicated by emergency response units, and also to be able to have lighting, to be able to charge their devices. So those are very important. The fourth mechanism that you can explore is something that it's quite controversial with many organizations, which is it's the Article 6 mechanisms, or the carbon markets mechanisms under the Paris Agreement. Basically, what it says that is in Article 6.2, there's bilateral carbon trading, and under Article 6.4 in Article 6 there is United Nations supervised crediting mechanisms, which basically means two countries can do bilateral negotiations to trade emissions reductions. Renewable energy projects, including solar, can generate credits that attract investment, provided that environmental integrity safeguards are met. So there are qualifiers on that. Another mechanism is the capacity building and technology mechanisms that are available under the Paris Agreement. While it is not direct finance, the technology mechanism via the Climate Technology Center Network, or CTCN, of the United Nations helps countries access technical and financial partnerships to implement renewable energy transition. It provides a lot of capacity building and finance support for countries that are party to the agreement so that their energy programs are NDC aligned towards renewable energy planning. The last one is also relative new. It is the Loss and Damage Fund, which is an emerging finance mechanism. It has been agreed at COP27 and operationalized at COP28 that this fund would indirectly support resilient energy systems, especially in vulnerable countries, through its scope. But while it is something that has potential, there is still a lot of campaigning that has to be done because it is still being negotiated on how it would be put into operation. In practice, when you look at finance, I think it's important that if you are looking at it through public financial mechanisms, the Paris Agreement covers a sufficient number of provisions to maximize access to resources. In practice, countries maximizes these resources, access to these mechanisms by embedding solar energy and energy transition goals through their nationally determined contributions. So basically, the nationally determined contributions are what countries are pledging to contribute as a part of themselves being a party to the Paris Agreement to reduce emissions, but more importantly, to be able to transition towards having their national development pathway or long-term strategy and align with both SDGs and Paris Agreement goals. It's important that transition goals should be embedded in the NDCs, also in the long-term strategies of the countries, in national adaptation plans, which makes them very high in terms of the possibility of being eligible for funding pipelines. And then my last point before I end is that, of course, national policies should align with just transition pathways. By embedding solar energy investments into NDCs and long-term strategies, governments can actually unlock bilateral and multilateral support and blended finance tools. This alignment not only attracts international resources, but also ensures that solar energy development is tied to equitable outcomes, which can be measured in terms of jobs, community ownership, universal energy access, making, resilience as a lived reality, not just a policy goal when facing the development in the context of climate change. So that's how I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. Actually, I also very pretty much agree with what you are saying about the government has the power to actually unlock the solar power energy. And of course, there are many other ways that actually, going on actually to unlock the solar energy potential. So actually, I will actually pass the mic to Ken. He's actually going to present our CCIL's Solar Care program, which is drawing from his 5-year impact report to illustrate how NGOs can build resilient energy systems and community resilience. So Ken, you have 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Let's see. All right, can everyone see my share screen? Okay, good morning, afternoon, and evening for everyone. This is Ken from the Carbon Care InnoLab, and today I will discuss our approach in unlocking Hong Kong's solar potential through our program called Solar Care. So in 2018, in response to the Hong Kong government's new feed-in the feed-in tariff scheme, FIT, we partner with a charity trust to design a program. Our goal was to accelerate solar energy generation within the local communities and thereby increasing renewable energies share in Hong Kong's energy mix and reducing the carbon emission. So our goal is simple. We partner with non-governmental organizations, the NGOs. With capital from the Charity Trust for the PV installation, Solar Care oversees the design and workmanship of the systems. We also provide maintenance services until 2033, which is when the FIT agreement ends. So through the system, through the programs, our partners receive a professional PV installation and a stable long-term financial benefits for the FIT, the feed-in tariff. And we also work with our partner to design activities that promote, hold on a second. My bad. We also work with our partners to design activities that promote renewable energies, hence raising the public awareness. So in other terms, we are trying to create a triple win situation for everyone, including the Hong Kong, the NGOs who we call Solar Care Partners, and the CCIL. So if you visit the Solar Care Program website, you can see a map of our installation and their live generation data, which you can visit our website through the QR code down below. It showcases the varieties of our partner sites, including campsites, including animal shelters, transitional houses, and even his monuments, those historic monuments. The diversity allow us to explore different structural and electrical design to see what work best in Hong Kong. And it also help us to reach a broader audience through the unique services our Solar Care Partners provide. So a little bit of program metrics. Since our first system went online in June 2020, Solar Care has built 36 sites with a total of 6,710 panels. This translates to a total capacity of 3,367 kilowatt peak of PV system. And as of July 2025, which last month, the program has generated 6,760 megawatt hours of electricity, which is equivalent to reducing 4,600 tons of carbon dioxide. To put it into a more relatable terms, it is enough to cover the monthly electricity usage of 24,600 households in Hong Kong. To show you the a little bit deeper impact of Solar Care to our Solar Care partners, let me introduce you to two specific sites. The first one will be Children's Village. Formerly an orphanage, it is now a caring home for schoolgirls aged from 3 to 21. The PV system we installed here has a capacity of 112 kilowatt peak and generated 99 megawatt hours of electricity in 2024. Throughout the FIT scheme, it provided around 238,000 Hong Kong dollars in 2024 in support of the borderers' daily needs, including like food and school supplies. As you can see from the photo, barely, I think, you can see the panels have two different orientations. Actually, majority of the PV panels are north facing, which is not quite ideal for PV system in Hong Kong. But I mean, it is what it is. We try to make it work and it performed fairly, I guess. And the second one I would like to point out, it's an animal shelter called the Hope House Organization. In fact, in Hong Kong, most animal shelters are in remote area to avoid complaints from neighbors for the noises and smells. And this particular site is located among tall trees, which it's located in the forest actually. which for PV system designing, it creates a huge problem because of the shading. And as you can see from the metrics, it is not a very huge system. It's 13.3 kilowatt peak in capacity and generated 8.3 megawatts hour in 2024, which translates to around 21,000 Hong Kong dollars for the animal foods for them to use. The reason I'm highlighting these two sites are because, as you can tell from my presentation, they are not a well-positioned site for PV system. But it actually highlights another key principle from ours, the being inclusive. From a purely economic standpoint, an investor or system installer would highly likely overlooking these two projects due to their lack of financial returns, because they will not be a very well performing PV system. But at Solarcare, we believe everyone should have access to renewable energy, and a less than optimal system is still a worthy system for us to build. And hopefully every little bit makes a difference. Okay, so as I mentioned before, working with diverse NGO partners, Solarcare partners, give us the opportunity to reach a wider public. Throughout all the years, we have organized various activities, including webinars, innovation workshop and competitions, solar tours, and of course the Asia Solar Energy for Climate Change Conference, which my fellow audience is attending right now, are all supported by the Solarcare program. So these events have reached around 8,600 direct beneficiaries and 71,000 indirectly. So to wrap up, back in 2021, the Hong Kong government set out a target for renewable energy to provide 7.5% of the city power supply by 2050, and a midterm goal of 3 to 4% by 2030. Now we're in 2025 and we are quite lagging behind. The renewable energy in Hong Kong's energy mix right now, it's reaching merely around 1% right now. And globally, for example, the target set out by the Paris Agreement about the 2 degrees Celsius rise in temperature, it's looking less likely to be achieved right now. And you can see also from recent years, some countries are starting to repump their oil in full force, and it's clear there is still a lot of work for us to do in terms of climate changes, in terms of boosting renewable energy and such. And this concludes my presentation today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Actually, we actually have a very full kind of discussions actually from various perspectives on how to build a resilient energy system with unlocking solar energy potential from different perspectives, using different case studies and examples. So probably it's something that we actually will benefit our discussions today. But sorry, that actually we only have 6 minutes left actually, but of course we start a little bit late. So I hope that we can actually allow a little bit more, probably a couple of minutes more to conclude today's discussions. So actually I have seen that a few questions coming in, and probably I would take a couple of them actually combining with what I've prepared before the section. First of all, actually, I can see that the audience, some of the audience actually quite concerned about the poverty, especially the poverty and inequality issues in Asia cities, and also what kind of innovation that actually overcome the challenges about like the poor infrastructure, fragmented urban planning, and so on and so forth, these kind of issues. I actually would like to start with the questioning. Probably each of our speakers can actually say something about that, because I probably have combined my thoughts before the section on your presentations. So I will see that actually Carl actually present a very positive case of how the city government can drive the solar energy and energy efficiency conservation program with energy audits, cities ordinance, and MRV systems. At the same time, actually, what is something that how we could actually improve probably with regard to Panusha's sharing about the safeguards. I think it's a very important aspect, whether, probably the governments may not be aware in the beginning, but actually probably is something that we could provide safeguards to projects actually might affect local communities if there's any large scale infrastructure. And probably Chot actually also mentioned about a number of various perspectives, various channels, how we can channel finance. But actually, what kind of safeguards for the financiers, for the banks to mobilize the capital? So probably there's something combined with actually what Ken already shared about the project. So probably after hearing all these different perspectives, so my question is actually what kinds of policies and finance tools, what kinds of safeguard policies actually can de-risk these kind of projects for the developers and the banks, and to unlock these kinds of fundings for the solar projects, which is justice outcomes are proven. So probably I would like to invite Carl to start with your perspective.
Hello.
Hello.
Can
Yes.
you can hear me, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, for me, I think there are a lot of ways that we can provide safeguard to the development of solar energy, particularly. But I would like to emphasize how can the national and subnational government can collaborate with each other on the development of solar energy, where they can actually uh, share their lesson, because cities and subnational governments often face similar social and environmental challenges, such as climate change, inequality, and others. They can collaborate. Basically, they can share best practices and lessons learned from each other's successful policies. They can also replicate proven models across um, jurisdiction across their own jurisdictions. And lastly, I would like to put emphasis on the need to incentivize the utilization of solar PV systems among the community levels, because as of now, in the Philippines, our existing policies targets the large manufacturers and industry, which basically consume large um, amount of energy. But it is also important to put policies which address the the normal residents uh, to put up their own solar PV system, or how they can actually uh, uh, encourage the public to put up solar PV system. I think
Okay.
that's.
Thank you. So probably I would also like to invite Panusha to give a comment. Probably 1 minute soundbite. Try your best.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So I can think of Barefoot College as an example. I don't know how many of you have heard about it. It's received a lot of international media attention. It's in the northern Indian state of Rajasthan. I think barefoot colleges are also there in some parts of Africa. So this college is funded by several multilateral development banks, the Indian government, and also the private corporates. They basically train the local communities, including women, to everything related to installing solar panels, repairing solar panels, basically making the communities self-sufficient in handling the rooftop solar systems and also solar lamps. Right. So I think it's a very good example of how solar systems can create community level resilience also in terms of upskilling and also giving them jobs. And I was very surprised that the women in the southern state of India knew about this barefoot college. So I think it can be a good example that can be scaled up across developing country economies.
Great. That's very good initiative. So Chuck, can you give us a little bit, 1 minute? Give you 1
course,
minute to talk
yes,
about this.
being mindful of the time. Yes, well, I could share the engagement that we have with influencing the Asian Development Bank's energy investment policy as it updates, which we, together with many other organizations, were able to exclude, for example, direct investments in coal in 2021. So what I will share are what are the minimums that you want for energy transition finance to include, right? So one of them is, right, first and foremost, is clear definitions in what they define as clean in their energy investment portfolio. So basically, it's ensuring that future funded energy projects should exclude harmful solutions as quantified depending on the environmental impacts and social impacts that it has, with also an explicit definition or focus on decentralized renewable energy. It should have, the second point is having transparent investment frameworks. So basically, it's implementing transparency, accountable investment practices with full disclosure of energy investments and their social and ecological impacts. This is important because much of the impacts of energy projects are often externalized because they cannot be reflected in accounts books. Like, for example, impacts on the health of people, impacts of loss of livelihood, if communities are disrupted because of the destruction of ecosystems. Those are things that we call for. Another is also being proactive and being intentional in articulating that in terms of finance, there should be a preferential option or a prioritization of grants over loans for financing energy transition projects. And then the last one is there should be a non-negotiable clause related to community consultation and consent. So basically, that ensures that local communities are consulted, involved in the decision-making process, and that their rights and livelihood are protected in all energy projects that the bank would be implementing. So I think those are important mechanisms or important policy demands when you would be engaging banks. Thank you.
Okay, great. Ken, do you have anything to share, maybe within 1 minute?
So I can only draw Hong Kong as an example right now, and actually, what pushed the solar boom in Hong Kong for the last few years is the FIT, but they pretty much schedule it to, well, they have two key points. The first one, they expect a solar system to be to stop profitable since year 8 or above. The second one is they set a really sharp dead end at 2033, which you can start by guessing since we are around like 8 years away from the 2033 already. You can expect there will be not much solar system building in the coming years, which because they will not be profitable. And since the government, they are not likely to extend the FIT, in my opinion. So in this way, they are pretty much closing their road to a higher renewable energy mix in the energy mix if they want it to be contributed by the community. In this way, they can only build it by themselves, which under this economic I don't think it will be a very high priority for them. So in terms of change of policy, I do think they might actually need to review the FIT policy for them if they want the community contribution from for the RE. Maybe not a sharp deadline, but for example, 5 or 10 years since the commission of your system, that might work better for them.
Great, thank you. Actually, Ken also have a very good reminder for all of us. Actually, finance is still, I mean, one of the key issues actually facing many parts of Asia, including Hong Kong. So actually, time is running out now. So I've actually thank you very much for everyone for being today here. As I actually wrap up, I would like to take a couple of principles away from what you guys actually already mentioned. I think first and foremost, actually, we must center people, justice, and fairness. Actually, this requires different mechanisms like FPIC from affected communities to provide livelihood protection, implementing gender-responsive measure, and so on and so forth. Participatory approaches must be installed, and so forth. I think it is very important to have this kind of people-centered approach at the beginning of all kinds of project development. And of course, second thing, actually, I also want to mention is actually the which is actually the coexistence. I mean, even though we're talking about finance, actually the coexistence with existing infrastructure like the agriculture, like the fisheries and grazing, actually these are also important livelihoods that actually people are relying. So probably how to make a design which coexists with different livelihood activities is very important. So these two things actually I would really combine with because actually drawing from your projects, actually you are researching, you are studying, and then how actually we can work together to promote the solar energy in the communities across Asia. So thank you very much for today, and actually that's the end of today's this section. So please stay on actually for the next section, which will be another insightful discussion on the resilient, particularly looking at optimizing the solar performance under extreme weather. So thank you very much. Bye bye.